Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at Ari Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community, it helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
I am your host, Stassi Schroeder. Welcome to Tell Me Lies, the official podcast. What's the most unhinged thing of season 3?
Steven, because he's so evil.
I do think he is misunderstood.
You see everyone face consequences.
It's intoxicating. The writers just know how to trick you.
There's always a twist in this show. It's nothing you would expect.
Tell Me Lies, the official podcast, January 6th, and stream the new season of Tell Me Lies, January 13th on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Underrated Movie Podcast, and Happy New Year. This is the first episode of 2026. This, of course, is a podcast where we look at films that are underrated, underappreciated, and ones that have slipped under the radar and passed most people by. I am your host, Derek McDuff, and today we're going to be talking about the 2018 Chilean film The Wolf House, or La Casa Lobo. And joining me is, as is tradition, for kicking off the new year here on Underrated, the host of the other show that I do, where I co-host the Midnight Film Society, and that would be Damien Sherman. How's it going, Damien?
Going pretty good, my friend. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. And to let the people behind the curtain a little bit, we're doing a back-to-back recording here. We just recorded an episode that came out months ago at this point of Midnight Film Society.
Yep.
But yeah, so we are ready. We are in it, ready here to talk about this animated film. I guess it's animated. It's stop motion. It's hard to even describe this film, which is kind of according to the Wikipedia at least, it's a fairy tale propaganda film. Of course, set in Chile, loosely based on the actual Polina Dinigad, Dad.
Yeah,
forgive me, my
like
Spanish is not great. Dinigad, which was a colony established in Chile post World War II by German immigrants. So, what does that tell you? Post World War II German immigrants in South America. I think you know what how that is. But yeah, so I was talking to you about what film you wanted to cover. And this film is described as avant-garde, dark fantasy, adult animation, psychological drama, surrealism, and supernatural horror on the wiki, which I think all of those are very apt.
Yes.
Damien, I had never heard of this movie before. This is some real hipster shit. I would also put that on the Wikipedia. Hipster shit. What was your impetus for wanting to talk about this one here on Underrated?
I'm just a weird little guy, man. Like, why you gotta harsh my buzz? I'm
not trying to harsh nothing, man. This is a very under the radar pick, so it fits perfectly for what I like to do here at Underrated.
Yes. So little bit about me as a person. I grew up being influenced by some dark stuff. Some, like, I would stay up really, really late, watch MTV. And when MTV was still playing music videos, they would frequently show things like the Tool videos. If you ever watched a Tool video from the 90s, it was extremely disturbing. And normal people would watch that and be like, cry their eyes out and go to bed and never watch it again. But I was like, this is fascinating. What is this? This is amazing. And I had nightmares. I still had nightmares, but I still loved it. And so, I just dove into all kinds of weird horror stuff. I'm a huge horror aficionado, and I love, and once you start diving into that stuff and loving that stuff, there's so many different subgenres and so many different alleyways you can go down and you start seeking out weirder and weirder stuff. So this is kind of where how this got on my radar of just seeking out the weirdest, most obscure stuff. So yeah, that's basically how this fell on my doorstep.
Yeah, and I would say, you talk about watching late night MTV. It almost reminds me of roughly the same time period, maybe like the early 2000s, mid 2000s, late night Adult Swim, when it was just like the real weird stuff that was happening, just like the stuff that was like, all right, the kids have gone to sleep. We're gonna get like experimental and very strange because we're just gonna let like the real crazy people just make whatever insane stuff they want to do with like claymation and whatever. And this movie is like, for those who are listening to this episode without watching the film, to describe this movie is very difficult because there is a lot of the animation. It's in like a diorama format. It's stop motion, but there is still a lot of animation that happens being drawn and painted on the walls. But sometimes those characters come out of the walls, and sometimes they slip back in, and sometimes other forms of animation happen. It's very, very peculiar. Damien, I mean, how would you describe this film to somebody who doesn't know what it is? Because I went in not knowing what it was.
Yeah, so it's tough to describe. Like you said, stop motion animation. It's not Rankin and Bass, like Abominable Snowman or regular Snowman, or any of those Christmas classics. It's not like that at all. But it is, it's the starting point. It's stop motion animation, but it's also, like you said, drawings on a chalkboard. It's all like some doll work, some plaster of Paris stuff. So it's all of these different mediums used together, but it is largely it's all stop motion animated stuff. That's actually how you would describe it. If everyone's seen like a David Lynch movie, early David Lynch movies, it's really dark and creepy, and just the sound. I think the aspect of this we haven't talked about is like the sound design is really well done. I think from the beginning you hear the main characters that you're watching all the stuff that is definitely from the main character's point of view, right? And so you are hearing from the very beginning her stomach rumbling, and I think that's a very good sort of through line throughout the entire movie, is hearing her stomach rumble. And I think when you start talking about the themes in the movie, that's where it really begins, is like, because so many cults, and I would, part of being sucked into, the cult of fascism, the cult of Nazism, and stuff like that. I think any cult really is deprivation of people, deprivation of sleep, and deprivation of food. So I think that's a really good way that the storytellers are bringing you into this, of being like, why is this person seeing these things or feeling these things? Well, it's probably, sleep deprivation and food deprivation is probably a big part of it. So just like you asked me to describe it, it's really creepy. It's very these images don't make a lot of sense, but I think once we start talking about some of the images in specifics, I think a lot of it has to do with allegory of being hunted, allegory of being isolated, allegory of being in a childlike state, that's basically what the thing is.
It's the framing story of this is very, not even framing story, the story of this, I guess, because the framing story is like, hey, this is a piece of propaganda being put out by this colony about this kind of rebellious girl who escaped from the colony and then essentially starts her own colony in this house, the titular wolf house, while the big bad wolf is outside, and she finds these two pigs living in the house and basically anthropomorphizes them to the point where they actually become people. And so it's kind of a take on the story of the three little pigs, but it's also like this story about, oh, here's this person who's escaped from this like fascistic place, who kind of then ends up setting her own fascistic thing up, which is obviously a microcosm of what was actually happening with the colony. So I thought that was really interesting, and just seeing the progression of these characters. There's two pigs, but there's, I guess, maybe you could say that the girl is the third pig, because they're all voiced by the same person. And like I said, they start as pigs, and they become pigs with hands and pigs with feet, and then they become these basically Chilean kids. They are like animated with having features that would be more reminiscent of a South American child, and then she kind of starts giving them this honey and like indoctrinating them more into like her way of thinking, the fascism is like, oh no, don't think like that, think like that, and they become these blonde-haired, blue-eyed, little Aryan kids, and then ultimately it's like, oh, do we go out for food? And they start to all turn on each other, and they're gonna eat her, and she calls in the big bad wolf to eat them, and she goes back to her, and it's like, oh, and then she went back to her ideal life in the colony, and that's like the bare bones of it. But there's also just so much weird shit happening because it's presented as one long shot, and things are happening, like vines are wrapping around her, and like I said, the characters are melting into the walls, and really horrific, like you said, Lynchian shit is constantly happening in this movie.
Yeah.
What do you think about the themes and the plot of this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say there's really a plot to it. I think it's really just it's. I mean, it's so cyclical. I think it's a cyclical story about violence and abuse, and like I said, I think the isolation thing I keep coming back to is one of the main driving themes of it, because it is just a house. It's a house that it repeats itself. I think it's just the house allegory is very, very apt here, because you are talking about, and then taking in the pig element too. So you're wrapping all of this stuff in like a very I think you mentioned it, a very fairy tale coded type thing, but also using that fairy tale analogy, that the way that abusers use that language, but also fascists use it, of being like, yeah, you're safe here. This is the place you're going to be. And we're going to shape it to the way that we think you are going to feel safe, right? And using safe sounding language and safe visualization and all of that stuff. So I think it's the feeling of, and also the hospitality, and also domesticity of being like, family's the most important thing, and sitting down to a dinner, and this what do you call it? A facade of, nicety, and a facade of normalcy is really what I think he's driving at here, being like, this is what a normal family looks like, even though there's clearly danger, outside, and it's dangerous coming in, and danger might be in the room with us, but we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to have a nice dinner, and we're going to sit here. And I love the scene for multiple different reasons, where they're having dinner, and because it's a stop motion animated movie, they have a candle in the middle of the table. And I love that the candle, you can sort of tell how much work is going into this, because you can literally watch the candle burning down as the characters are moving about the scene. I thought that was one of my favorite things I've ever seen in a stop motion animated movie, just because you can see exactly, how long this scene took to animate,
Yeah, and that's one thing I talked about this a lot when, last year I did my Leica retrospective about the insane amount of time and dedication that these stop motion films require, and how they could really lean into a lot of these really interesting thematic things. And yeah, like I was reading about this film comes from this directing duo. It's their feature debut, Cristobal Leon and Joaquim Cosina, and how they worked on this movie for 5 years. They got funding from the Chilean Fund for Film Project Development and the National Council of the Arts, of Culture and the Arts, and just really just insane stuff that went into this, to making this movie, and it's still being 75 minutes long, and you could still tell that, geez, they must have just worked so intensely hard at this, because Leica, will make a movie and it'll take hundreds of animators, years to do something, and this is just insane. It's got this like imperfection in all of that, where like you'll see like the paintings happening on the walls and it'll drip down. That lets you know that this is very real. This is very intense, and it adds to the disturbingness of it, honestly. Like you're seeing that candle built down again and again, and the things in the background being kind of moved around, and it gives it this very, very creepy vibe. I think that because stop motion does often fall into this uncanny valley and can kind of give it that creepy vibe. I think that's why a lot of Leica movies like Coraline and Paranorman are a little bit unsettling, intentionally so, despite how good those films do and all the things that they're doing to make those films look a little more perfect. I think that this one is just so grungy and grimy, and you talked about the assimilation aspects of this, and how it's like, oh, we're doing this process of like, oh, we sit down, we have dinner and stuff like that, and how they become these little blonde children. It's like, oh yeah, I want to take these pigs and like raise them up, but it's really, she's just doing it because she wants to exert her influence over them, just like the influence was exerted over her, to the point where when she knows that her life is in danger, she invites the wolf in to devour them. And I think that really speaks to the way that these fascistic ideas kind of propagate and what actually happened in Chile in this, you know, if you, I won't go too much into it, but what happened in that Chilean colony was really horrific. It was really, some awful things were happening. Some abuses were happening to children. So yeah, I think that it's just a real work of art. I know that a lot of the stuff that was the sets for this movie are still on display in it's like, I think it's a exhibit, a museum. It's like a rotating museum exhibit, and I would love to see that. But yeah, this is some real fucking art, this movie.
real art. Like you said, you were reading off what the Wikipedia entry has it as. It was like, very very avant-garde, like super avant-garde stuff. Very weird stuff. But yeah, just get back to the themes and ideas that at play here. I think one of the most frustrating things for me as somebody that is very, I think I have a deeper understanding than most people about history of violence and fascism and authoritarianism, and I think what this movie does very well is to in its own way is to talk about how these rooms and these walls and these tables and all this stuff. I think there was that moment, like I said, with the candle, where things get burned down and washed away and changed. Have been sanitized again, and this movie does a very good job of saying. I think that's a very good way that the movie talks about how history gets rewritten, and what's that word? You sanitize it, and you just do that over and over again until people forget. But the thing about that is people they don't love to regret. They don't love to forget, but they forget very easily, and people's memories are very anybody's memory, when you talk about like even an accident scene or a crime scene, you ask for eyewitness testimony. Eyewitness testimony of a thing that just happened to you is very unreliable. And so I think this movie is talking about that, about how even expanding out from an accident scene, a nationwide massacre, nationwide atrocities are so easily swept under the rug because people want to forget easily. They don't want to remember that stuff. But I think it's so very important. The reason why it's important to keep, like Auschwitz, somewhat intact, and all of the, gas chambers and stuff like that. The reason why all of the stuff you can still go there and still see it as it was is because it needs to stay as it was. It can't be changed. It can't be altered at all, because if that stuff physically goes away, then it really will be forgotten. And that's what this movie is talking about, is like if a room is so easily changeable, if a world is so easily changeable like that, then yeah, it just makes atrocities so much easier to be forgotten about and make those things easily repeatable.
This episode is brought to you by Dead Man's Wire, the new film from Roque Entertainment. Dead Man's Wire is the incredible true story of the 1977 kidnapping that turned an aspiring entrepreneur into an outlaw folk hero. Directed by legendary filmmaker Gus Van Sant, Dead Man's Wire stars Bill Skarsgård, Dacre Montgomery, Cary Elwes, and Myha'la, with Coleman Domingo and Al Pacino. Now playing in select theaters everywhere January 16th.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So then I'm doing IT, and when I go to plug the servers in, they become sentient, and they won't let us access our network unless we forward their chain emails and memes to more and more and more people, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant finds and invites best fit candidates to apply, so you can discover talent you may have missed. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something I've talked about, like how these, when we can kind of create these things with AI and stuff, and you don't take the time that would be required of this movie, you can just the fucking president can type a couple of things on a keyboard, and then there's a image of himself dumping shit on American citizens. That's a really fucking terrifying thing, and yeah, we need to be reminded of the things that are real and have taken place in history. Because, like I said, this film starts with someone escaping from fascism, who immediately starts a new form of fascism, and then invites the old fascism in, and then escapes, as a bird. She turns into a bird and flies away, which is a metaphor that is not lost on me. Obviously, that turning into a bird, flying to freedom, is usually an uplifting thing, but in this case, it's being used to, symbolize her flying back to fascism. And I think that this movie is really the fact that she's the one who goes and indoctrinates these other pigs, that she had this thing while she was friendly with the pigs earlier on, and she's kind of just one of the pigs, but she still has her privilege. She still has her place where lording over the other ones. And as soon as they turn on her, she just lets that evil back in, lets it consume everything. And while she might seem like, oh, well, I'm not really going with this. Oh, as soon as it's not beneficial to me, I'll go back to my ways, is something we see quite a bit. We're seeing it definitely a lot now in this country. Obviously, we saw what happened in 2020 where we were like, good, don't worry, we beat fascism, we're safe now. And it's like 2024 rolls around, it's like, just kidding, somehow Palpatine returned, Trump's back. It's something, like you said, we have to really be aware of. We have to constantly be vigilant of this history. And, I love the way that the visuals deal with that. It's nightmarish, but it's also dreamlike, the way it uses the language of film that you could only do with like stop motion animation, that kind of thing, by having, like I said, turn to a bird, or to the way that the house just transforms around her is very nightmare / dreamlike. The imagery works perfectly for the thing that it's discussing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all well said. Yeah, and the ever-changing house is also, how people survive under fascism sometimes. Like you said, I think it's a really good point that you keep coming back to of, she's escaping a fascist regime and then making her own. That's how I think a lot of people justify that stuff, is like, well, I had to. I was just following orders, or like my kids were to be taken away or my kids would be killed, and I did what they said because of that. I think that the way that people reshape themselves and reorganize their brain and reorganize their beliefs to fit, what everyone else is saying, just so they don't feel left out, then I think that pig analogy, I think wasn't it a thing where at the beginning they were saying like, oh, this girl, like it was a story the guy was telling, right, about a girl who let some pigs out from the pen.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah.
That's her. And so, yeah, that's about like, oh, well, these pigs that she let out are now, what are they supposed to be, like her kids? Is that what they're saying? Like the pigs in the house that she let go, or like now she's making them friends, or what do you think they're trying to say?
Yeah, I know that. I think that's just her like finding these Chilean kids, and turning them into what happened to a lot of these Chileans, where they were like made these second-class citizens and made to be kind of Aryanized and taught these fascistic ideals. That's the way I took it. But
yeah, and just like I guess that would be like her, crafting herself around these people to be like, okay, yeah, I'll wear your clothes, I'll do your culture, I'll speak like you. That's the same thing that the Puritans did when they came to America, or especially the conquistadors and all of them did to the Native Americans, of like, you will dress like us, you will say, you will speak English, you will believe in our God and all of that. Yeah, it's I guess in that way. I never really thought about it in that way, but yeah, it's just the way that conquerors and imperialists and what do you call them? When you take over a country and you're like,
like colonizers.
Colonizers, yeah, exactly. Colonizers doing the same thing of just like, we're not even going to just kill you or take your food or put you in camps. We're going to actually make you look like us. So I guess that's her version of that, right? Taking up these pigs, and you're going to look like me, but I'm not like me. You're going to look like the me I want to look like, or I have to look like, in order to survive this ordeal.
Right, because as I said, they start as more South American, Chilean looking kids, and then they end up becoming like just little German kids where they have the blonde hair, blue eyes, but they're also wearing like literal lederhosen, like the most German thing you can imagine. And I think that this is obviously not the first work of fiction where it is about pigs becoming humans, you becoming animals. Obviously talked about the Three Little Pigs, but also you can think of something like Animal Farm, you know, where that's all about like the pigs like learning to walk on 2 feet, and then the pigs eventually, you know, the become the fascists and stuff like that. And while it starts as like, oh, we're all like becoming equal, they quickly it becomes like a metaphor for, you know, essentially the rise of communism and Stalin in Russia, and after getting rid of their enemies and the original ideals that were, you know, the original socialist revolution quickly kind of fell away to these other ideals. And you see the way that I think it's definitely intentional, because there is so much metaphor when it comes to pigs, them rolling around in the slop, but also anatomically being very, very close to humans. Like if you watch a show like Deadliest Warriors or CSI, if they like have a carcass that they need to somewhat represent a human, they will oftentimes use pigs, because pigs are very close to us. So I don't think that it is an accident or random that it is the pigs of all the animals that are the ones that are transformed into people in this movie.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's such a disturbing movie, but it's also, I think the disturbing nature of it is also allegorical to, you know, atrocities committed by fascist regimes. You know, I think it's an interesting way to think about it. Like, oh, you don't want to look at this disturbing movie, but you have to. You know, you have to, in order to stop this stuff and to fix it and to try to make it so it doesn't happen again. You unfortunately do have to look at horrible things. Like, you know, this isn't real. Obviously, it's not a real people, but it's not. It's also an interesting way to, you know, compare. You know, people just don't want to think about shit like this, and it's such a frustrating thing to think about. Of just like, okay, well, I mean, if you're not even willing to sit down and think about this, not even just, I'm not even talking about trying to do English 101 of like, what is this about? What does this mean? But just literally looking at it, fucking look at it, you know? I think it's also such a, I want to stop saying interesting, but it's fascinating to be in this world where we have so much access to pictures and stories and videos and first-hand accounts of atrocities happening all the time, but we don't want to look at it. You know, we have this magical thing in our pocket that transmits images of horrendous things happening all around the world. And some of us look at it, but some of us don't. You know, I just think I don't really have a concluding thought. I just think it's interesting that we can have the ability to look at this stuff, and so many of us won't. So many of us won't even look at it. Never mind trying to think about why it happened or try to figure out how to stop another one from happening. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And when people draw our attention to these things, it's like, oh, you're just being annoying. You know, it's just, I don't bring my day down, because it's overwhelming at times. But I think it is very important to be aware of these things that are happening in the world, so that history doesn't repeat itself. But yeah, any final thoughts on Wolf House?
No, I just think it's interesting. I always keep using that word, but that's what I was going to say too about why I picked this movie, and it's David Lynch related, because Lynch played John Ford in The Fabelmans. I know it's a quote you've heard me say many times, and maybe your listeners on this show haven't heard me say, but in The Fabelmans, you know, he's playing John Ford, and he's saying to little Sammy Fabelman, you know, look at that picture. If the horizon's at the top or the bottom, it's interesting. If it's in the middle, it's boring as shit. And I just find so much shit boring because it's not like this. You know, I think it doesn't have to be this esoteric and this out there and this avant-garde, but I just find shit like this so fucking interesting. And yeah, like you were saying, the amount of work that went into it, I can't imagine, you know, doing that amount of work and having almost nobody see it. I picked this to highlight it. I picked this to have more people see it. I picked this to, to talk about it with you and to highlight this and to platform it and to hopefully more people watch this, but also watch stuff like, Phil Tippett's Mad God from a couple of years ago. That's also an artist at the height of his storytelling. You know, it's his ego put straight to film. And I think this is also probably Christian, like I said, Cristobal Leon and Joaquin Cosina's, their thing that they put on film, their heart and their soul, they put into this. So that's pretty much my reason for picking this, is to talk about all the things we talked about, but also to make sure more people check it out.
And yeah, that's the mission statement here at Underrated, is to get these movies that should be talked about, should be seen. So hopefully, some people do watch this. I'm really glad that you brought it to my attention, because I don't think this is one that I would have come across if you hadn't. So I'm very glad. And like you said, Leon and Cosina, they have a very distinct style. Something that is kind of similar to this that they actually worked on. They did the animated segments for Beau is Afraid. So that'll, if you haven't seen this movie, that'll give you an example, because it is very thematically similar, I think, to Beau is Afraid. But yeah, we talked about Beau is Afraid. We talked about Mad God, and we talked about these kind of strange avant-garde movies. Are there any other of these kind of like weird, offbeat, avant-garde, sicko movies that you wanted to shout out?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably shorts like the big ones we mentioned already. David Lynch, and he's done throughout his career so many short films. So I definitely recommend checking out. I think on Criterion they have a collection of David Lynch's early short films. So definitely check that stuff out. I'm trying to think. Yeah, the early Tool videos obviously have some incredible stop motion animated creepy stuff in there as well. I'm trying to think. Let me see, because I know there's a bunch of things that I've. Oh, you know what it is? It's stuff like Tetsuo the Iron Man is. Yeah, up there with some of the best practical effects and body horror. So if you're into, David Cronenberg's stuff, that is highly influential. Not influential on him, but influenced by him. I would definitely recommend that. I believe there's a sequel to that as well. I think there's one movie called like Chainsaw Girl. Probably was influenced on Chainsaw Man now. Yeah, I know that there's tons more, but yeah, body horror stuff it would be like that, like Titan, the movie Titan, but the woman who had sex with a car and then became impregnated, and so that's definitely avant-garde. That's definitely something out there, like you're asking for. Yeah, a lot of stuff like her by Julia Ducournau. She did Titan and Raw. I think she had a new movie out this year called Alpha. So definitely check out a lot of her material. So yeah, I think that's a good starting point. I think if you start there and you like, okay, I'm going to stop there, that's good. But if you want more, then definitely check out stuff like Tetsuo the Iron Man is great place to start off. Yeah, and then one that I think a lot of millennials will vaguely remember is The Adventures of Mark Twain, the Will Vinton, who was kind of the progenitor of Laika Studios. People might remember that's the movie where like Mark Twain and a couple kids go and talk to Satan, and he's like one of those like creepy like drama masks, the comedy and tragedy masks. It's just like held up on a stick. That is some pure nightmare fuel, and there was some bits of that I was getting while watching this movie. So I wanted to shout that one out as well. But yeah. Any Takashi Miike movie, Ichi the Killer is one of the big ones. Yeah, he's speaking of Japanese stuff and speaking of body horror and really out there stuff. Anything by Takashi Miike, he did Audition. So check out Audition or Ichi the Killer or any of that stuff. Yeah, I've covered one of his films before that was probably the least body horror-ish of his movies, which is Ace Attorney. So that's a lot of fun. Yeah, exactly. So there's so much out there that's like weird and creepy. But this is definitely, I think, Wolf House. It's funny to say, but it's probably the least graphic, I would say, of that weird stuff that I'm into. I think there's not too much body gore stuff in this actually. Thinking back on it, I'm like, it's not for kids, but it's not gonna make your stomach turn. Yeah, it's more unsettling than anything else. It's just like weird. It's just weird shit. Yes, just some weird shit. I'm a weird little guy. Well, where can people find more of you being a weird little guy? I'm a weird little guy on Discord right now. My name is the Blair Bitch on there. I'm on multiple different Discords. If you're a film guy like we are, go to the Ringer Discord, go to Blank Check Discord, go to what am I on? Yeah, Big Pick Discord, Letterboxd Discord, Blank Check Discord. Check me out there on Letterboxd at Midnight Film Pod. I am on there as well. And go to my blog, medium.com damien-sherman.medium.com to read all my writing. And Midnight Film Society is my podcast. Get it anywhere you get your podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. And, people listening, obviously, you mentioned Midnight Film Society. Check that out. Also, check out, I have at this point, I guess, started Amadeus, which is a podcast where I look at Amadeus in 15-minute chunks. That's going to be released. Actually, I guess it starts in 3 days. So you can check that out on the Patreon, underratedmoviepodcast.com. Or going there, or going to patreon.com/underratedmoviepodcast, and I'll be covering Amadeus, the director's cut, 15 minutes at a time over the course of the year, released on the 15th, thematically and appropriately enough, of every month. So please go check that out, as well as checking out all the stuff that me and Damien do. Until next time, everybody, I have had a blast, and I'll see you all later.